Yeah, sure. So escrow acts as like as a middleman, essentially. They're like an impartial middleman, where you initiate an escrow transaction, and then the buyer deposits their funds with escrow, and escrow will tell you once those funds have cleared, and then those funds are essentially ring fenced. You then send over the login details for the website, push them the domain, and they do that whole migration. So essentially, they now have ownership of the website. And then you can select whether you have no inspection period, or however many days inspection period you want, where it gives the buyer the opportunity to change out the tags or to verify everything. And then once that's verified, they just tell escrow they've received everything, it's good. If they tell escrow that they've received everything and it's not good, they then have to send you back ownership of the domain. And I've never been through that process. I say fortunately or unfortunately, because I don't know the ins and outs, but I assume after that they send you back the website and the domain. They have to prove that to escrow before they get their money back. So it's kind of like a middleman, just to make sure that as a seller you're protected, your money's safe, and it's ring fenced. They can't just run off with the money once you've sent them the details. And as a buyer, your money's safe while you verify everything it checks out okay and it is what the seller says they're selling.
Cool. And it just provides protection on both sides. Everyone feels a little safer running through it. So from a legal standpoint, were there any documents drawn up, or was it pretty much like a handshake agreement?
Yeah, there's no documents signed up. I know I've in the past had to look at NDAs, so I won't compete within certain niches, which some sellers require. Some buyers require and some buyers don't. I have had deals fall through because I wasn't prepared to sign an NDA for like 5 years within a specific niche. I think that's a little bit too long. I mean, 5 years in the affiliate world is a lifetime. I think that's too long. But yeah, there was no other official documents. I think escrow in this case was more than enough to protect us both. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other details with the transaction at all? Like, did you feel pretty safe throughout because you were using escrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was lucky because I was selling to an experienced buyer. They handled all of the site migration. They handled all of the tag updates. I mean, it was a very smooth sale from my side. I think it's a little bit different if you sell to someone who's a beginner and they need the hand holding of how to migrate the site and how to update the tags, especially if like the website is using Amazon short links. Typically they want some help in switching out those short links. So yeah, but in this instance, it was very straightforward, very simple transaction on my side, which was good considering it's my first time.
Yep. And by the way, quick side note, I've sold a site pretty high dollar amount and didn't use escrow, just transferred the money, high amount of trust. But part of it is because I have like a public brand and they
Yeah.
felt safe working with me. There were some legal closing documents, which were actually essentially like a real estate transaction. In fact, I think they were literally used for a real estate transaction. So as I read through everything, I didn't even hire a lawyer myself. All right, that's how like seat of the pants it was. I just read through it and I was like, this line makes no sense. This is not like a residence or whatever. So people operate differently, and some folks will have a huge stack of papers to sign, and sometimes even with 60K or even more, you may be able to just operate if you trust the person without
Yeah.
making it super complicated. So
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
all
I
right.
think trust plays a big part. I think that whole relationship you build in the negotiation part, I think puts you at ease. If someone's very responsive and they, I get, I guess it's just a gut feeling you have with someone when you start chatting to them about potentially selling a site. That's the way this felt anyway. I mean, I put 7 months of like blood, sweat, and tears into this site, and it felt like the guy, at least initially, appreciated that. I say initially because I spoke to him then, like I think it was like 6 or 7 months later, and I was like, I remember speaking to him and said, how's my baby doing? How's my site going? It's still growing. And to him, it was just another transaction. He said, "Nah, I sold it like 6 months later for 90 grand. It was just on a upwards trajectory, and he literally just held on to it waited for the average revenue to increase and then flipped it on. And that was kind of a light bulb moment for me again. I was like, wow, I want to be in that position too one day as well, where I can just buy sites and hold them and flip too.
Which brings us to, what did you do with the 60K?
Yeah, well, the first thing I did was I took some time off. I actually burnt myself out writing all of that content. So I'd finished my job. It was quite a demanding job, and I'd done all this content writing. I started looking around for another site, and then I can't remember. I think I found it in the Flipping Websites group. It was a site in a sports niche, similar kind of value. I think this one's a bit less. I paid around $10,000 for it. All of the content was written by non-native speakers, so I instantly saw the opportunity to upgrade and update that content, and then add a ton more. This website was then, I ended up buying this one in January 2019, I think. Yeah, about around then, I think. Maybe, was it 2018? I don't know when the date was, but I remember it was January time. I had the December off for Christmas, and I bought the site in January, and then I started working on the site again. Lots of technical SEO, lots of foundational structural changes, and then this time I didn't write the content. I started outsourcing the content. First of all, I tried to find some writers on places like Upwork, which were very hit and miss. It was difficult to find consistency there, and also difficult to find scale there. I mean, you find one good writer, but they can only push out, X amount of words per week, and then they have other commitments, and before you know it, you've got one good writer that's doing 3,000 words a week for you, and 5 terrible writers who are able to pump out as much as you want, essentially. And then I grew that site, similar kind of time frame actually. So around 7 or 8 months in, that site was doing around $3,500 a month. But this time I didn't sell it. Obviously, I kind of learned my lesson from the last one where I'd sold it a little bit too early. And I still have that site, still part of my portfolio. But that cash flow allowed me to reinvest. So rather than sell the site and then kind of look to buy more, what I wanted to build up was a portfolio of sites. So this cash flow and some of the money from the initial web sale allowed me to start buying other sites, most really of which have come from the Flipping Website Facebook group. And they tend to be quite small, I guess, in comparison to some website sales. I find my sweet spot tends to be around the $5,000 to $10,000 mark in terms of buying sites, and then work on them and invest in them, and then flip them for sort of 20, 30,000 over a time period. And I've done that quite a few times. I've recently sold off three websites in the $20,000 to $25,000 range, and then literally this week I've put up another 3 sites, which combined come to about another 25,000. All of which I've just bought and invested in and grown, and looking to exit. And the main reason I'm looking to exit now is not for the cash flow, which I think we'll come on to a little bit later, but it's to reinvest back into my expired domain portfolio.
Okay, cool. And when you had sort of like the height of all your sites in the portfolio, how many sites did you have in the stable?
I don't think I've ever been above kind of 6 or 7 sites at one time. It's really difficult to work on all those sites at one time, obviously. And what you find is you tend to work on the ones that are doing the best, and then the ones which are, either you've just recently bought or not doing as well, then you kind of just leave them to the wayside. But then I think it's always a good opportunity then to say, okay, well, what am I going to do with these? Am I going to keep them and work on them? Am I ever going to get around to them? You kind of always have that thought in the back of your mind. Yeah, I'll get around to that one day and I'll do this. But really speaking, as you get busier, you just kind of never really get around to that. One of the sites, incidentally, that I'm selling, I put up for sale recently, is this exact thing. I bought it end of last year, and I've literally done very little to the site. It's just sat there. It's been very consistent. The cash flow has been good. But I mean, I've literally done nothing to it, to be fair.
When you are looking at these sites, are there some criteria that you identify knowing that you'll be able to improve the site and sell it for a higher amount, or, increase the value just by increasing the cash flow?
Yes, definitely. So there are two things that I always look for. One is the ability to look at the top 10 pages that are driving traffic and have a look at the content. Is it thin content? Can it easily be updated? Can I easily add a FAQ section? Can I easily add another 5 product reviews? Does it have a buyer's guide? Can I add that in so I can easily and quickly have quick wins on those top sort of 10 or 20 pages that are driving 80% of the traffic? The other thing that I always do is switch over the design of the website to one of our templates. So over the years, we've developed a template that's built on Thrive, and I think a lot of people will have something to say about that. I think page builders are a bit of a personal subject, but I personally love Thrive. I think they've done great over the years, but I always switch out the design to one of my Thrive templates. It's proven to work over the years. I've done lots of split tests and A/B tests using Google Optimize to test even as far as things like what's the best call to action on the buttons. I think I shared some results with you recently where we talked about, is it best to have check price on Amazon or buy now on Amazon as the call to action text. So over the years, this template has kind of evolved based on all these little tests, and I find switching out the design to this template on the top 20% of the pages usually has a nice boost in conversions. We recently did this for one of our clients, actually, where we switched out the site they'd bought over to one of our designs, and the average time on site, I never really took too much notice of average time, but I'd gone from like 45 seconds to like a minute and a half. And it was very clear in analytics. You switched the template and you could see just went like whoop. So that was kind of cool to see in actual real life data and raw data, switching out to one of our templates, what that looks like. And so the opportunity to update content, the opportunity to improve CRO through changing the template. And then I'm also leaning towards, these days, niches which are quite broad, so I can start expanding. I've always been a fan of sports sites, niche-specific sports sites. So, for example, soccer, and I like. The reason I like this is because the niche is very well defined. Before you start, you can plan everything out. In the soccer niche, for example, you can pre-plan your categories. You've got balls, you've got cleats, you've got goals, shin pads, and it's very easy to plan out what the whole finished site will look like in terms of content before you start. Whereas if you start with something broad, just like outdoors, that could cover everything. It could cover camping, it could cover RVing, it could cover so many things. I find it's difficult to nail down what your first sub niche should be, and then how much you should build that out before expanding to the next. And there's always that thought about, okay, I've covered everything in camping. If I now start looking at a shoulder niche, will Google recognize that? Will that content start to rank? So I've always been a big fan of very narrow niches. But recently, since starting to build on expired domains and utilize the power of the existing backlink profile, I'm actually starting to lean the opposite way again now, where I'm looking for expansive niches. I'm looking for the sites where I can add, 1 million words over the course of time, where I'm not going to be constrained to a single niche. Or if I am, at least to start with, I'm looking for domains that are brandable. So, for example, the domain won't include the word soccer or be totally about soccer, but it'll be about ball sports, and I can expand into rugby and all the related sports essentially that go along there.